NERF Pro Sender? I hardly know her. Oh, that was awful. NERF Pro Sender? More like return to sender. That's too obvious. NERF Pro Sender? More like send it straight into the trash can. Welcome, I'm Walcom, and NERF has finally heeded the call and gave us another pro-level foam dart blaster after the Stryfe X. It's a pretty meh and also pretty expensive. This is a lot more palatable, coming in at $50 and available at both Target and Walmart and probably some other places as well. Not a bad price for a semi-auto flywheel blaster that takes 8 AA batteries, but does claim up to 150 feet per second velocity, which is really good, and comes with 30 new NERF Pro darts. And here's all the marketing material that Hasbro has been abusing for the past decade. Extreme accuracy, high velocity, and outstanding durability. Sport grade quality and endurance. You don't know how funny that is yet. In the box, you get some protective eyewear. They are nothing special, but useful because these things do hit rather hard and you don't want to get in the eye with one of these darts. A new type of NERF Pro magazine, 30 of the new NERF Pro darts, and the NERF Pro Sender itself. On the back of the box, it says, look out for the NERF Pro Torrent, which we'll take a look at in the near future. And it looks like they're gonna sell mags and darts separately, which is pretty good depending on the prices. And this is pretty neat. They give us an exact measurement and exact size of the NERF Pro dart. Let's cover these new NERF Pro half darts first. They have some of the smallest heads I've seen on any half-length variety of darts, but they are pretty much the same. The weight is a little less consistent. I weighed a couple different ones and got anywhere from 0.1 grams to 0.17 grams, but the foam seems pretty dense, especially for a NERF product, and the smaller heads allow them to be used in barreled blasters, usually springers, like the Torrent, and have basically universal compatibility with every other half-length blaster. And you do get 30 of them. Not bad. These are much improved of the original AccuStrike half-length darts that came with the NERF Stryfe X. The fat heads on those don't allow you to use them with any kind of blaster other than a flywheeler. And the new half-length Pro darts are also a little bit heavier, so they will be more stable in flight. And here they are compared to Adventure Force Pro darts, the Stryfe X half-length darts, and then of course the new NERF Pro darts. All good stuff, but that does mean that the AccuStrike half-length darts are gone. They were an experiment apparently for exactly one blaster, so might be the fastest ammo type NERF has ever discontinued. Speaking of getting rid of things instantly, there's a new magazine too. This is not the same magazine that came with the NERF Stryfe X, and it is not compatible with the Stryfe X, nor are the Stryfe X mags compatible with the Sender. They hold 15 rounds, but if you're capable, you can stuff up to 18 rounds in there pretty comfortably, and overall have a really cool design. I love the transparent, thick plastic on these things and the little loop down at the bottom, and yeah, these are cool. I really like the look of these, and well, they look pretty familiar, and that's because they are a carbon clone of the Worker angled Talon mag. So the Stryfe X used a derivative of the Talon mag. The new NERF Pro stuff used derivative of the angled Talon mag. But yes, they are virtually identical Worker angled Talon mags. That does mean that Worker angled Talon mags do work in your Sender, although you can push Worker angled Talon mags a little bit too high up, so you need to kind of push them in and then pull them down until they lock into the magazine catch. Not optimal, but at least you can do it. But the Sender only comes with one magazine. 30 darts, 1 mag, magazine-fed blaster needs to come with 2, and for $50 you'd kind of expect that at this point. So if this was a NERF Pro Sender's driving exam, I'm already noisily scratching stuff off with a pen on my clipboard.
Your hands are 9 and 3.
I thought it was 10 and 2.
It was 10 and 2, but now it's 9 and 3. You're gonna lose 5 points for that.
Going over the blaster itself, it is a very funky and unique design, and I like that. I mean, I should like it. I pretty much tried to make the exact same thing 5 years ago. I wouldn't really call this a sidearm because it is obnoxiously huge for being a sidearm, but a compact primary that is specifically built to be basically fired off the hip as good as possible with as little of the blaster sitting in front of you as possible, yeah, the Sender accomplishes that. And this is cool. It's a unique design. It's not something you really see anywhere else in the foam flinging ecosystem, unless you 3D print and know what a cage fighter is. Starting off at the front, we've got a tactical rail right above the muzzle. This tactical rail is the same thing we got with pretty much every blaster that isn't N-Strike in the last couple of years, which means that basically the only accessory made for it would be Rival, and there's only one Rival optic made. So yes, that does lock on there. It still wiggles a little bit because tolerances are NERF, but it works, looks goofy, it's a thing. Technically, you can put N-Strike attachments on it, and it does kind of lock into place. Frickin' barely, so I would say it doesn't work with N-Strike attachments. You're gonna lose whatever you put on there. And annoyingly, it isn't Picatinny, which is what everybody else uses, which is a standard, which means it works with hundreds of thousands thousands of endless attachments that you could put on here, 3D printed or otherwise, and that would be great, but Nerf doesn't believe in that. At the actual muzzle, there's nothing here, other than this concerningly deep hole where the darts come out of. You can see where the flywheels are right here. There's like 4 or 5 inches in front of this thing. That is deep for some reason. But just below that, you've got your grip, which is really weird to say. But yes, here is your firing trigger and here is your rev trigger. And right out of the box, my rev trigger was sticky. Not something I really like to say when it comes to my foam dart blasters. But yeah, it is spongy, it is sticky, it definitely needs to be like opened up. The tolerances aren't quite there, but since it's a rev trigger, honestly, doesn't really matter. You're not gonna be feathering the rev trigger or anything like that, so it's acceptable, but annoying. Above that, we've got the firing trigger, which is very heavy to pull. Very clunky, very heavy. It works, but it's not nice to use. To me, I like the design. It feels fine on my hand. My main complaint, besides the triggers, is that this grip is just uniformly chunky, and it actually gets thicker up towards the stop instead of thinner, so it's really difficult to get a good grip on it, and it just never quite feels good in the hand. This part I have no problem with. I like the extra point of contact. It makes it really good for firing off the hip, but it has the ergonomics of like a tree branch and not like a particularly cool one, so your mileage is definitely going to vary on that. Just behind the thumb hole grip, you've got a safety mechanism here that will block the triggers, both of them actually, from being used. Below all of that, you've got the battery tray. This is held in place by 2 Phillips head screws, and it takes 8 AA batteries. This is actually a good thing in my opinion, because this is a blaster much like with the Dart Zone Pro Mark III, where you don't have to have a LiPo or a rechargeable battery or anything special to use the blaster. You can find it on store shelves, pick it up, spend $40 on batteries, and you got a blaster that lasts you all day. Batteries go dead, swap them out immediately for a new one. Traveling, you don't have to worry about carrying LiPos or anything with you. Overall, a really good idea, and it does give it another unique feature that really we don't share with too many other blasters out there. But for the end consumer, somebody who isn't traveling or doing anything like that, kind of blows. For $50, no rechargeable battery, no nothing like that, even though Nerf has made rechargeable batteries in the past for stuff, they're certainly saving some money, but they're not passing on any of that savings to you. And I know there's a glaring comparison to be made here between the NERF Pro Sender and of course the Dart Zone Max Venom Pro, but I'm gonna be dedicating an entire video to that, so make sure you get subscribed and hit that like button on your way down or I'll be very angry with you.
So you better do it.
Moving on further back, we've got a jam clearing door. It's the same thing you'd expect to see, and just behind that, you've got this, well, kind of like a stock area thing with what looks to be like a slot for like a sling or something like that. There is a sling point located up here as well, although that's a little more than awkward. This is pretty cool, is what I would say. Actually, really quick, do they talk about this in the freaking instructions? Yes, it does. It shows the stock. So all you do is just yank on that, this thing comes off. This is really cool. Honestly, I like this part. I wonder if it has any other use, because I hate just having these bare nubs on it, and I really appreciate Nerf putting this on there. But yeah, you can pull this off, and you got an end strike stock attachment point. You can put whatever end strike stock you want on it, which is really cool, and that could help with a lot of the ergonomic issues. So it's a cool design, except for if you wanted to use this loop right here for like a strap or something, you're gonna lose your blaster. But you could also utilize then the way that you could have this on a sling and just pull it down, use the blaster, and put it back almost like a stock. So it has multiple uses, and that is cool if you're a creative individual. And then of course we got the magazine well, which you just take your magazine and you load into the mag well. It's a little stiff, but it's not that bad. It's mostly just the angle that's weird. I don't know why they went with that design. And you use the blaster, you just hold down the rev switch. It revs up. It's a little slow at revving up, but AA batteries. And then you just pull the trigger to fire. And it fires an arc. And what you could probably tell from that firing is that it does bog down the motors pretty bad, and it's honestly not the smoothest trigger pull ever. So if you want to just rattle off shots with it, honestly, I don't think that's going to happen. This is one of the slowest rate of fire semi-auto blasters just because of the mechanical pull on the trigger I've ever dealt with in this hobby. The NERF Pro Sender can hit anywhere from the high 140s all the way up to the high 160s. Considering a standard NERF Elite blaster only hits around 65 to 70 feet per second, a NERF N-Series blaster hits anywhere from 80 to 90 feet per second, and a NERF Rival blaster typically hits around 100 feet per second. This is a substantial velocity increase. Even testing it with the VentureForce Pro Darts, just because I could, the velocities were still pretty good, although they were a little bit lower. Overall, for AA batteries, a very powerful showing from the NERF Sender. Moving outdoors for a distance test though, we run into kind of our first issue with this blaster that could be a complete game ender. Now don't get me wrong, the distances are pretty good with this thing. Very good, in fact. Almost every shot went over 100 feet flat or angle. Now seeing how you can't really aim this blaster, that's not the greatest thing ever, but just spraying it off the hip, you can definitely land your shots if the darts don't spin out of control. And that's the first major problem with the Sender. And it wasn't just the included darts or the mag. I had whirly-bird darts coming out of this thing constantly. That is unacceptable. And it's impossible to show you on camera, but if you looked at it, my flywheels are misaligned. The bottom flywheel is about 1 millimeter off center from the top flywheel. And because of the extremely tight crush of these flywheels, with them being mismatched and off balance, that's gonna cause problems, and you can see that in the firing footage. Which means accuracy for this thing isn't great, and it is an unreliable blaster for me out of the box. Now this could be just my NERF Pro Sender, but if you see other reviews that claim the same problems, be very wary, especially if they don't show you firing footage. During our indoor accuracy test, that heavy trigger pull and the inability to really aim this thing the way you want to because of its design also kind of gets in the way of having good accuracy. I started off using the included mag and the included darts, just trying to fire it off the hip to gauge where I should actually be holding the blaster, and while I was able to get a lot of contact to basically aim using my whole body once I've dialed it in, the accuracy was okay. I did get some pretty decent scoring off this thing with it clutched against my body. Putting a NERF rival sight on this thing and shooting it wasn't really any good. The sight didn't help at all. It was still wildly off center for the dot. You can't really adjust the dot, so it wasn't really useful. Things got substantially worse when I swapped to Adventure Force Pro darts. It seems my accuracy went out the window almost completely, and I couldn't hit the target no matter what I was doing, especially because those whirly-birds became a lot worse. And I did test this thing with bamboo darts just because, and my goodness, it was unusable. The darts were coming out essentially backwards, and that made it impossible for me to do anything with it, which is a huge bummer. It definitely doesn't mean that every single Sender is gonna be this bad, but this being this bad out of the box straight from Walmart is inexcusable for a $50 product. And I hate to say it, but I keep getting more and more NERF products that out of the package don't seem to work the way they're supposed to, and that is really turning me off from the brand as a whole. It could be fixed by disassembly and maybe being able to push that wheel down a little bit more, maybe from the factory it just didn't get pushed down hard enough, or swapping out the cage entirely. I'm not sure right now, but if we ignored that, the velocity is pretty good, the accuracy will be probably just standard flywheel blaster, and overall the thing is usable. It's not meant to be like a super accurate aimed blaster anyway, it's virtually meant to be almost exclusively fired off the hip. I mean, it does share more than a little bit in common with Zero's pistol from Mega Man Zero, but I don't think you're gonna be using it much outstretched like that. I think this thing's gonna work a lot better if you just have it on a sling and fire it off the hip. And honestly, dual wielding this thing may be really cool. I didn't buy 2 of them, but it could fit really comfortably. So yes, I had a lot of problems with the NERF Pro Sender, and it got a pretty middling response out of me while I was using it. Performance was actually really good. The velocity was rather high for this kind of blaster, and this battery tray design is really smartly designed, so you could very easily switch these to thumb screws, hollow out this battery tray and wire it up for a LiPo, and that would be excellent. You wouldn't have the same bogged down motors that you would get with AA batteries. I don't find it overall that comfortable of a blaster, and just the wacky design with the lack of a Picatinny rail and stuff like that, I just don't understand why NERF just refuses to use things that other companies all over the place are using already because they're a standard. But it's really hard to ignore the accuracy problems with those flywheels being misaligned. That is horrible. This is a very specialized blaster for a very specialized person that just likes to run and gun and doesn't care about pretty much anything else. It is a short, compact, lightweight blaster that you can hold really close to your body and get some insane performance out of it. And I really do appreciate Hasbro doing something wacky and unique with their NERF Pro line when they know they can't compete with any of the competition at all, apparently. In terms of value, it's not bad, but not very good, in my opinion. I really wanted to like this blaster more than I did, and I think that's what's hurting me the most. It's so weird to me that I keep having these issues with Hasbro quality control. So if I had to give this a rating out of 5, I would honestly give it like a 2.5. It hits the mark for velocity, but pretty much nothing else. It feels pretty rushed, it doesn't feel tested, it feels like they've done a lot of things different just to make sure other stuff doesn't work in it to overall hurt the consumer, but they also did some really cool things as well. It doesn't mean that it can't do cool things while also being a really good blaster though, and the NERF Pro Sender probably isn't that.